Okay, here we are. This is your boy Akeem Rahim with Y Art, and I'm here with the talented and multifaceted art curator, culture generator, cultural icon, master negotiator, Andrew Espino from 1Culture.
Yo, I just got to go like that for that intro, man.
And yeah, man, it's good to be here with you, and just to pick your brain a little bit, since you work so heavily in the art scene, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's so many ways. The channel is called Y Art, and this is the first question we like to ask folks, right? There's so many mediums of expression. There's so many things that people do, you know, whether it's dance, music, or whatever. And what we want to ask folks in the visual art space is, why art? Why this type of art? What about it is special to you?
Man, well, I'm an 80s baby,
Okay.
you know, so.
Me too.
Yeah, okay, so we got a lot in common.
Yeah.
But to answer that question, I mean, for me, art motivates me and inspires me. You know, like most people don't know, or if they do, I'm a real estate broker by trade. You know,
Okay.
I've been a real estate broker for 23 years.
Wow.
But music, visual art, whether I'm listening to it or looking at it, it inspires me in some way that's very relative to my business.
Yeah.
It helps me be creative. And most people don't know, but in real estate, you got to be super creative on structuring transactions and coming up with financial plans.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times, you know, I look to art, I gravitate towards art and music and visual art to help me stay creative.
Yeah.
And I talk about that a lot of times with outside of the art world, but with my colleagues in real estate. They're like, well, how do you come up with these creative plans, or how did you structure that deal? And I was like, well, just my juices were going, you know, and so it inspires me to be creative in a different way.
Yeah. So you're like a visual person,
Yes.
and art helps to get your creative juices flowing even in other aspects of life and business.
Right. So when I was younger, you know, cartoons, right?
Yeah.
When we were in the 80s, cartoons, breakdancing, everything that has to do with hip hop, you know, graffiti, all that stuff I gravitated towards at a very young age. It was our culture, right? It was what we grew up with.
Yeah.
Mixed with a lot of my uncles, they were in and out of the penitentiary, but they were artists. Some musical, they play the congas, you know, timbales. Some of them used to send me letters all the time. You know, some of them didn't have any words, but it would be like a visual, you know, of like the 49ers, or I played sports. So it would reference me like in my linebacker position or something. So when you came into my room in the 80s and 90s, you would see like these cutout magazines of sports, but also like penitentiary art.
Okay.
And so I was curating my room with like art and sports because it was everything that I loved, and hip hop. You know, definitely a hip hop head, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, to answer that question, why art, it takes me also back to my childhood and what I found like a passion for.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I definitely can identify with that. You know, it was really like breaking 1 and 2.
Yes.
And Beach Street.
Yes.
That really, like, you know, snared a lot of kids into like wow, this like art is kind of counterculture, and you don't have to. It wasn't like ballet or something where you had to like find a way into that industry. It was like, start here.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Start where you're at. And so I totally get that. So you've been here on the West Coast and on the East Coast, curating and organizing art events and art shows, right?
Yes.
Okay, and tell me what that's like, working with different artists from all walks of life. Like, you know, there's like, you know, fine artists, if you want to call it fine art. There's canvas work, you know, and then there's like muralists, you know, because a person who does murals is like a totally different animal than a person who does canvas work.
True.
So how do you manage all these different types and styles and get everybody in the same room and all on the same page together?
Oh, dude, that's a crazy question, because I never really thought about it. But if I have to think about it, you know, it's like the first thing I usually look for, like, is just like what's dope, right? Like what I like, what I think is relatable. And then when you start peeling back the onion, it's like the skills, you know, and then what are they trying to say? So it does, to answer that question is like, it doesn't really matter whether it's fine art, canvas, abstract, muralist. They all look for like a common ground. You know what I mean? And it's like what's relatable to me, what I like, you know. It doesn't mean it's for everyone, but that's what I usually look for. And then the storytelling behind it, I always look for like, what is the visual saying or what they're trying to say about the art piece, right? Like what's the message? And so from that point, then it just kind of all filters out in different directions, you know, but that's like the common ground is like, what are they trying to say? You know, believe it or not, what's crazy is like a lot of times everyone's saying the same thing, you know what I mean? And it kind of all traces back to like, we're one, like the one culture, right? Like we're all one, we all have kind of a similar message, usually about social justice, you know, inspiration, creativity, like all these things that people are really trying to spill out, right?
Cultural pride,
heritage, you know,
counterculture sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
I totally get it.
So going back to the East Coast, West Coast is, you know, I've always loved, you know, growing up, my imagination was always like, I want to travel the world and I want to go ride subways, right? Listen to all the hip hop music, right? I want to meet KRS-One, right? So, you know, I was fortunate enough to meet a really good friend a couple years back in Brooklyn. And that friendship became something more as far as like creating, and we did an art show together. So my good friend Frankie Velez, he lives in New York City. He's born and raised. He kind of took me underneath his wing, and he was my mentor, but more as a friend and mentor, right? And was like, kind of like, hey, you know, it's really dope what you're doing with the gallery. Here's some things that I experienced when I was coming up as a curator. And so, you know, me, I was taking it all in. I was like, man, I can't get enough of this. Share more, you know, tell me more things that you think I'm doing right or doing wrong. And obviously I have my own twist, but as a friend, we started to have this common bond about art. And we both love hip hop. So it was just like an easy friendship, but also mentorship. And that's how I started to get connected with a lot of the East Coast. And then I was invited to Bed-Stuy 1, which is Bed-Stuy Walls, right? The first one. And like anything, I went out there and, you know, we were helping, we were setting up tables, we were doing all these things. And I remember at the end of the festival, you know, he came up to me and he's like, yeah, I'm Drew, like, you know, the way you're helping out, bro, is like, you don't have to do all that, you know, like, but for me, that's what we do when we have barbecues, you know, we clean up after each other and it's family, right? We set up tables, and for me, it just came naturally. It wasn't like I was looking for anything out of it.
Teamwork,
you know, and that's just how I was raised. It's like, you're going to somebody's house, you help them, you know, and then just like it's your own.
I feel you.
And so that built a bond that was much bigger than art, the friendship. And then from there, we just started kind of diving more into art and curating together. And we just did our first show, which is Iron Horse.
Iron Horse. And this was
in June 1st of this year. It was a tribute to train riders and graffiti riders.
That's
so
dope.
So we had 2 West Coast, 2 East Coast, one from Italy and one from France.
And everyone did a mural?
No, it was actually in a gallery in the Lower East Side. And so we actually curated an art show. So we curated an art show. So it was in the Lower East Side, and it was a very special moment in my life. I mean, I never thought like I was going to curate something in San Jose, more or less, in the Lower East Side of New York City, right? Especially with these legends.
It's like the Mecca.
It's like the Mecca, you know, and it was great, man. It was a great show. We had really great artists. I mean, it was sold out. The community really showed up and supported. And so, like, I'm just super grateful to get these opportunities, you know, not only to like be a part of it, but to showcase amazing talent. I think that's what it's all about. It was more importantly, right?
And that's what's up, man. That's a dope story, and that's a dope opportunity to be able to, you know, work in the Mecca of graffiti art, hip hop art, because that just adds to your bona fides, right? Like your resume, it speaks for itself, but it gives you that little bump up where you can say, I've done this now.
Right. You know what's crazy is like a lot of folks are like, yo, like how are you making connections? Or like, I think sometimes it's like, how did 1Culture go from doing pop-ups or nothing to pop-ups to hosting a show in New York City?
Yeah.
And I think we chatted about this briefly, is really building friendships and looking at everybody as a resource.
Yeah.
You know, for me, I built my business that way when I was very young, and I started in real estate. You know, my parents never owned a home. There was really no home ownership in any generation in our family. Okay. And so I learned how to gravitate to resources as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Right.
And so to have those type of administrative skills, managerial skills, and the vision to put it all together, that's a talent in its own right, and it's a talent that none of us have. So we need this guy.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So yeah, man, you know.
I think like you said it like bingo, for real. Like, I take my life experiences, and I never had it easy. Like, the story that people don't know is that like I built my business, my practice from nothing. Like nothing. Like, that's a whole nother conversation. But back to that is like being resourceful and learning how to create a game plan for myself. You know, it's like I've been self-employed my entire career. So to put this in perspective, like
never had a job.
I've never been employed by anybody besides working at the gym when I was in college playing football, right?
Okay.
But
that's a flex, dude. It's difficult to stay out of the 9-to-5
yes,
gig, and it's difficult to stay independent.
Oh yeah,
for a number of years. So
absolutely.
You never had a job?
So I've never been employed. I've been 100% self-employed from the age of 22.
Wow.
And so I had to pay my own insurance. I've had to pay my own mortgage payment. You know, my office bills. You name it. Everything. And I can't miss a beat.
Yeah.
Every single month for the last going on 23 years of my life.
Wow.
And so like what I want them to understand is like, yeah, art is a big part of my life now, but what I'm really doing is I'm taking the skill set that I developed over almost 23 years and I'm applying it within this new business that I found.
Yeah.
And I'm still learning how to be a curator. I'm still learning how to introduce myself to the art world.
Yeah.
But I'm doing it with these skills that I learned. And so that's how I'm able, and like I said, being resourceful. I always say that is just because that's the only thing I got is like, okay, I met Akeem.
Yeah.
All right, so how are we going to work together multiple times and do this, right? But like, and we're here doing a podcast now, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't know each other 2 years ago whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, but yeah, I mean, taking everything that I learned for the last 22 years and applying it to the art world is, I mean, you know, it's not easy for sure.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and that's another thing we can appreciate, the art community, because a good salesman, a good closer can sell anything.
Yes.
Right? And you can say, okay, what do you got? Spring water, we're gonna sell spring water. What do you got? You know, landscaping business, we're gonna sell this and make grow your business. But oftentimes that doesn't come with passion.
Right.
And it's like, give me the product, I can sell it, you know. But for this to be something that you didn't have to do, but wanted to do, and apply your skills to be able to market the artwork, there's like a authenticity there, a genuineness. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it's like you care about it, you love it. You know what I mean? And we appreciate that about you, because just being a good salesman it's good enough, but having love for the art it takes the experience a step further, right?
Yes.
And yeah, people can, like, you're able to find kind of a voice, like you said, among the group of artists,
right?
And put together something that's kind of cohesive, where a person, the average consumer, will go into this show and say, or they wouldn't just say, oh, I like this this stuff over here.
Right.
Like, I don't like the rest of this. They're like, I like all this stuff.
Right.
And it's because it all has a kind of common thread. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, yeah, man, I appreciate you. We appreciate your time. This is Why Art. And as a matter of fact, I'm looking for Matley Hurd next.
Oh yeah, he's fire.
Man, we've been trying to get together for 2 or 3 weeks, and it keeps falling apart. So Matley Hurd, brother, you are next. And thank you again, Andrew. You are the man.
I appreciate you,
for
man.
1Culture, and that'll be that this time.
And so that's kind of the tricks of the trade for myself, is like when I got into the art world, I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
I loved art, and everyone was kind of like, who are you? You're not an artist, you know?
Yeah.
But I spent a lot of time researching artists.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I researched you. Like I went through your entire catalog to look for consistency.
Okay.
And I've never shared this with you, but I look and I see like, okay, that's hella tight. What is he trying to say? What, like for you, for example, you do a lot of pop culture, you know, like, and so like, the Coming to America, I was like, oh, that's tight. Like, you know, and so like, but your spin on it. So I went down the line and I looked at every single piece of art, and sometimes, you know, I'm sitting there squirreling and 45 minutes goes by, but I just spent 45 minutes on Akeem and understanding a lot about what he does and how he does it.
Yeah.
And many people don't know that. So I'm not just picking them out of a hat. I'm spending quality time looking at individuals, you know, and trying to research to see who's the next up and coming artist, you know.
Yeah, you got to believe in the product, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And that makes sense. So like, that's really cool. Like I know that we talked about this before as well. You seem to have received some pushback from some folks about not being an active artist, or not being an artist yourself, and I guess they might question your ability to judge art or your ability to curate a show.
Yeah, I think, you know, from whether it's from the art world in general, not being an artist, or maybe not coming from a certain background.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like, I get it. You know, in every field, there is some sort of gatekeeping.
Yeah.
Right? There's pride. There's like, hey, we've been working at this for a long period of time. Who are you?
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. And so you got to earn your stripes.
That makes
right?
sense.
You got to earn your stripes. What I feel like I've seen is a lot of judgment or a lot of raised eyebrows. Is kind of like, well, how did you go from A to B so fast? And like how? And like I said, it goes back to the research. Like if you go back to every single show that I put on, I spent quality time curating it and really looking at the individual.
Yeah.
There's some artists that maybe haven't been in shows ever.
Yeah.
And then there's some artists that maybe haven't been in a show in 10 years, but I'm watching them. So when I follow somebody, it's cool, we're following each other, but I'm really interested in what they're doing actively.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm following them. And my point to that is, that's where I'm putting in the work. See, many people don't think I'm putting in the work to curate. And to be put in this position to have these shows. I'm not just picking people out of thin air. There's rhyme and reason behind it.
Yeah, and you know, to that point, I would just like to address the critics and the haters. I mean, the talent scout for NFL teams is not an NFL player.
Correct.
He's someone who can recognize talent, though.
Right.
I mean, like, Customato was not a boxer, right? He was a coach for a boxer, right? I mean, marketing firms, they market items that they think can, you know, that they believe in, right? That they think can do well at market, right? And they try to take this product and make it twice as popular as it was last year or whatever.
Totally.
Right? But they don't make that product.
Correct.
And all the haters out there, just so you know, recognizing talent, curating artists, marketing art, and organizing a group of artists who are basically scallywags. Artists are the worst in terms of punctuality, commitment, right?
Yes.
Gathering, scheduling, organization. A lot of artists are living with their head in the clouds, and they're on creative mode almost all the time.
Right.
And when you try to organize something with an artist, a lot of times the art gets in the way, or some random thing that they forgot to do.